What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Okay, maybe that was a slight exaggeration on my part. Greetings and salutations everybody, welcome to the Sonic Forces video. I apologise that it has taken as long as it has to get this video out, but as you know, if you saw my channel update video, initially I wasn't very happy with what I had. And then I started re-recording it, and I got all the voice clips together, and then I got this new microphone. So then, for those who might have missed it, I started up a poll, and the general consensus from what I got was people wanted me to re-record this video with the new microphone. Understandably so. I mean, why not? You have new hardware. You may as well use it. So that is where we're at now. If you're new to the channel, by the way, I would appreciate it if you did stay a while and listen. If you get annoyed of my voice like 10 minutes in, then that's absolutely fine. You can go elsewhere and watch whatever you want. I honestly, it's a free world. But if you do like what I have to say by the end of all this, I would very much appreciate a like, a comment, and maybe even a subscribe if you're feeling generous enough. But anyway, with all the sort of YouTube jargon out the way, let's get cracked on. So Sonic Forces to me is not a game that I hate. I don't hate it. I find it to be, and I quote, frustratingly mid, to the point where this game is boring, but I can also have fun with it at certain times. There are things that I do like about this game, but the things that I don't like about this game, it's not that they're necessarily bad, it's just, you just think to yourself, if they had more time, or if they fleshed this out a bit more, and if they fleshed that out a bit more, this game could have been something great. At least to me it could have been. Like, the whole premise of it, the marketing, it was all there, and the execution just kind of made it feel a little bit flat, at least to me. Listen, if you enjoy Forces, this is not a video to try and diminish your opinion or tell you that you're wrong, or anything like that. If you enjoyed this game genuinely from the bottom of your heart, listen, different strokes for different folks. I love Unleashed, as all you know. Unleashed is my favourite Sonic game, but people tell me it's overrated, and I'm fine with that. People can have that opinion. Absolutely. There's people out there who love Sonic 06, as bad as that game is on a fundamental scale. But people enjoy it, probably because they enjoy it. It's one of those, it's so bad it's good. And I get that. I understand that completely. But hey, we're going to go into a bit more detail in the upcoming sections of this video. Ladies and gentlemen, Sonic Forces. So the story of Sonic Forces to me is a little bit of a weird one. On one hand you have a premise that is quite intriguing, and then on the other hand you have an execution that is so poorly done. So the game opens up with Eggman in his lab, and he's trying to harness the power of something called the Phantom Ruby while using Infinite the Jackal, as we know him, as a vessel for this power. And his goal is plain and simple. He wants to take over the entire world and control everything. But the Uprising, as they call themselves, and Eggman's forces have been fighting for quite some time. And to what it seems to me is that Eggman has been making no progress at all. He's been constantly met with pushback. But this Phantom Ruby might be the answer for everything he wants. To which we find out that it is. During a battle sequence in the city, Eggman calls upon Infinite after the full development of the Phantom Ruby, and Sonic and Infinite go one-on-one, soon to be like 5-on-1 because he uses projections of Sonic's past foes, and he completely wipes the floor with Sonic. Fast forward a few months later, there's no hope. Sonic's friends are all in the war room, and they're just contemplating, trying to think how they can take back the planet without Sonic, but they know that they have to, and at this point in the game they don't even know if he's alive or dead. And thus enter your character. You get plucked off the streets and thrown into the deep end. So you join the Uprising and you do a few sort of minor missions here or there before you find out that Sonic is actually alive, but not particularly well. He's been captured upon the Death Egg. Zavok basically kind of frees Sonic kind of, and then they go one-on-one, he kicks Zavok's ass, and then your character turns up, and then you both escape the Death Egg, thus beginning Operation Take the Fucking Planet Back, to which you do in record time. Yes, across this game's 30 stages, it's only probably going to take you about 2.5 to 3 hours to take back the full planet. And then we get this massive cinematic end game sort of sequence which you don't even participate in, and then you, classic Sonic, yep, he's in it too, and modern Sonic all go and fight Infinite and Eggman to end this once and for all. Everybody wins, nobody dies, I think. Classic Sonic goes back home. I'll go into more detail of why I don't think he should have been in this game in the characters section. And everybody sings Kumbaya, but all is right in the world again. So my main problems with Force's story is the writing. I don't think it's particularly strong here. There's like an extremely strong emphasis on friendship, which I understand to some degree in some parts of the game, but it's literally a massive integral theme in this game, to the point where it does kind of feel a bit cringy. Infinite, he doesn't really have any real motive. Well, you find out his motive in episode Shadow, but I'm talking the base story. You don't really know his motive. He's just somebody who's been given something that's very powerful, and it just makes him this big bad evil guy. Which it's a shame, because I feel like if Sega gave Sonic Team more time, I feel like they could have really fleshed out Infinite's character, and he could have become one of the top villains in Sonic. Genuinely, I genuinely think he would have done. But because the execution here is so sloppy, he's just a really edgy guy who happens to be powerful. Eggman does and doesn't take a backseat. Like, he still is at the forefront, but the main antagonist, I'd say, is definitely Infinite. The rest of the Uprising as well, Knuckles, Amy, SBO, Vector, Tails, Silver, Charmy, etc., don't really feel like they play any important role in the story other than to be part of some radio chatter. What the heck? Which is what they've been relegated to, and it's just such a shame. It would have been really cool to see like Knuckles get involved with, you know, how strong he is and how badass he can be at times, but no, he doesn't really fight until the very end. And even then it's just in a cutscene, it's not like gameplay, you know what I mean? And I think the biggest problem I have with Force's story is that it feels like it tries to cram so much in such a small box, if that makes sense. Like, you can see that it's genuinely wanting to do a lot more than it's actually capable of doing, and it feels like that. That's the thing about Forces, and it's so frustrating. It's an interesting premise that just doesn't quite stick the landing. And another thing on top of that, I'm going to mention it before I forget, the game's tone is just a far cry from what it should have been. The marketing for this game looks like we were getting a darker, more serious Sonic game, while also still being family friendly, but it looked like it was going to go down darker avenues and incorporate darker themes. But it just doesn't. It's a very happy-go-lucky adventure in what is otherwise meant to be a world where there's no hope. And that, to me, that's the biggest offender. So, you know how I said in my Sonic Unleashed video that Sonic Unleashed had a very small but focused group of characters? In Sonic Forces, it's quite the opposite. There's a lot of characters in this game, but unfortunately, a lot of these characters contribute absolutely nothing to the story, to the point where they probably shouldn't have even been in the game in the first place. So I think it goes without saying, obviously, modern Sonic is in this game, it's his own game, it wouldn't be a Sonic game without him. You have classic Sonic, why he's here I don't know. In Generations, it made sense contextually. It made sense for him to be in Sonic Generations. In this game, I don't know why he's here. Was it a case of, well, people loved it in Generations, so let's bring him back? Classic Sonic didn't need to be in this game. He really didn't. And then you have your character, your avatar, your OC, whatever you want to call it. And I'll say to you, I actually quite liked the inclusion of this. Even though I was never really a Sonic OC person growing up, I do like the fact that you get to create your own character and live in this world. What I don't like is the fact that your character is mute. I would have really liked to have had an array of voices that weren't grunts to pick from and actually participate in the game's story. That would have been really cool. And I'm like, you only really need to make 4 voices, 2 male, 2 female. That's all you have to do. You don't have to, you know, bend over backwards and give us like 100 voice options, because it's not a role-playing game, okay? And then there's other characters like Tails, Knuckles, Silver, Amy, SBO, etc., who contribute not really that much. In cutscenes they do act as a vessel for the story, but when you're playing through the stages, all they're there for is radio chat. You don't get to play as them, you don't really get to see them in combat until, well, the final cutscene where there's a massive war, but again, there's no gameplay, it's a cutscene. And it just kind of feels like they're just sat in the back chilling, smoking a few spliffs, drinking some coldies with the boys. And then finally it's like, oh, right, time to go. That's kind of how it felt. And I just didn't like that, if I'm honest with you. By the way, halfway through editing this video, I realised that I made a mistake. I don't refer to any of the villains as Phantom Ruby versions of themselves, even though they are. The only ones that aren't fakes are Eggman and Infinite. Zavok, Metal, Shadow, and Chaos, they're all Phantom Ruby projections. I forgot to mention that, so I really apologise. As for the villains, we have Eggman, Infinite, Zavok, Metal, Phantom Ruby, Shadow, and Chaos. So you have boss fights with Eggman, you have boss fights with Infinite, as you would expect. Out of Zavok, Metal, Phantom Ruby Shadow, and Chaos, you only fight 2 of those. And out of those 2, I would only say that one of them is a boss fight. Yeah, Metal's not a boss fight, you're just running at him. That's it, it's not even a boss fight. Whereas Zavok at least has a little bit of strategy involved, albeit not a lot. But of course, Sega gives Zavok one of the most fleshed out boss fights in the game, because this was during a period where Sega were completely obsessed with the idea of Lost World. Oh, Zavok, remember him? Everybody loves Zavok. No, we don't, Sega. We don't love Zavok. But yeah, that's kind of it. And what I want to cover mostly in this section is Infinite, with him being the main antagonist. And the biggest problem I have with Infinite is his motive. Now, in the story part of the video, I said didn't really cover his motive, right? And we don't cover his motive in the base story. But if you play through episode Shadow, you find out what his motive is. And his motive, and I quote, is because Shadow called him pathetic. And basically, Infinite goes on a bit of a temper tantrum about how he's not weak.
I am not weak!
And that is why he joins forces with Eggman, because Eggman promised him, I've got this thing called the Phantom Ruby. It's fucking powerful. Would you like it, kid? And he said, yes, please. And then he joined forces. Because he just wanted to prove to everyone that he's not weak. That is literally his motive. A villain is as good as their motive. If their motive is believable and their motive is good, then it makes a great villain. We've seen plenty of examples of this in other media. But when the motive is, oh, he called me weak, innit? Yeah, I wanna get back at him, yeah? I just find it really hard to believe. It's just such a shame, because Infinite had so much potential. They put all their eggs in the Infinite basket when promoting this game. They were like, this guy's a big deal. This guy's a big deal. This guy's a big deal. He's super strong, super evil. He's going to be the greatest villain in Sonic history. And he could have been one of them. He could have been, but he wasn't. And it's just such a shame. And just kind of like with Silver, we've not really seen anything of Infinite since. I would not be surprised if Sega are trying to brush him under the rug because they don't want to associate themselves with Infinite. It was missed opportunity, to say the least. But yeah, those are the characters. I don't need to explain Eggman. I mean, Eggman's motive makes more sense than Infinite's, because it's just Eggman being Eggman. You believe that motive from Eggman because it's Eggman. He's an established character. Right, time to move on to the gameplay. The gameplay of Sonic Forces to me is a bit of a weird one. The game is incredibly polished to the point where I didn't really run into any glitches or any game breaking bugs or anything that would break my momentum. But on the other hand, you have 3, I'd say technically 2 different play styles that one feels incredibly automated from start to finish, and the other one just feels incredibly inconsistent. Now, I'll let you guess which ones I'm talking about there. So, the gameplay for modern Sonic and your avatar are these incredibly automated stages where all you really have to do is jump a few times, homing attack a few times, or in the avatar's case, use the whip spin a few times. But more or less, these stages are on rails. And now, this is inoffensive, there's nothing terrible about this, but you can kind of see why some people actually get a little bit bored of this kind of gameplay. They want a little bit more control, they want alternating branching paths, and I'm of that camp, and Sonic Forces just doesn't really offer that. Whereas classic Sonic, he feels incredibly heavy but also floaty at the same time, to the point where his movement is incredibly unpredictable. And while there have been times in other Sonic games where classic Sonic does feel this way, you can kind of forgive it because of the game's age, but we're talking about a game that came out after Sonic Generations, and I just feel like Sonic Generations just did a much better job with classic Sonic. However, what I will say about classic Sonic's gameplay in Sonic Forces is I feel like there's a little bit more depth here. With modern Sonic, it's pretty much just boost to win from start to finish, and the avatar stages aren't really that much different other than a few Wispin inputs. And then there's also stages where you play as both modern Sonic and your avatar, and they're just effectively the same kind of stages that you have when you play as your avatar or as modern Sonic, but this time you get prompted with a double boost where you and Sonic both team up and go super fast. However, the problem with this is that there's no real way to fail it. Yes, you could fail the button prompt, but all that happens is that Sonic and your avatar stumble, and then they just boost anyway. And listen, I'm not saying that this should be an automatic fail on the stage or anything like that, but I would very much like to see it where you actually have to manually boost again, and then maybe at another time during the stage, you get prompted to try again. It just makes you beg the question, why include it when you technically can't fail it? So this is where I'm mostly interested in Sonic Forces gameplay, and this is one of the things that I actually do like about it. You have 7 Wispins that your avatar can use, and essentially these Wispins are just weapons that grant abilities to your Sonic Sona, if we will. So you start off with the Burst Wispin, which is essentially just a flamethrower. It just fires a bunch of fire towards the enemy and takes them out relatively quickly. But all these Wispins have special actions. In the case of the Burst Wispin, it triggers an explosion that shoots you into the air, and if you repeat this action, you can gain even more height. Then you have the Lightning Wispin, which is essentially a lightning whip, and the special action for that is the Lightspeed Dash. Then you have the Cube Wispin, and it turns enemies into cubes that when you break them, it drops rings. And the special action for that one is that it creates a platform, and you can even use this ability in mid-air. The Asteroid Wispin helps you lock onto multiple enemies at the same time using clones, and the special action grants you invincibility and draws nearby items towards you. The Drill Wispin, which seems to be everybody's favourite, attacks with a drill, and if you tap this button repeatedly, you gain more power. Whereas a special action helps you clear the stage even quicker. You can burrow into walls and in the ground, and you can even use these walls to climb upwards. You have the Hover Wispin, which blows enemies away using a shockwave, and the special action helps you fly through the air, and if you fall into a pit, it's basically a get out of jail free card. It'll teleport you back to where you were. And then finally you have the Void Wispin. It sucks enemies and rings with a black hole, so it's an easy way to collect rings and also clear enemies, and the special action teleports you in a direction wherever the left stick is held. As you play throughout the game, you will actually unlock stronger versions of these Wispins. You will find more upgraded ones which have better versions of their abilities, as well as additional abilities on top of that. And I'll be honest, for better or worse, I actually quite like the Wispins. I like the fact that there is variation between them, and I like the fact that as you play throughout the game, they get even better. The caveat to that is, for example, with the Lightning Wispin, the Lightspeed Dash. Sonic doesn't have that. That's been pawned off to your avatar, and I understand why some people feel a bit iffy about that. And to some degree, I do too. But I'm glad that they didn't remove the ability altogether, but contextually, it should really be Sonic's ability. And how can I talk about the gameplay without talking about this little nugget? Super Sonic. Something that should have been in the base game, Sonic Team and Sega. It should have been in the base game. Why were you pawning it off as paid DLC? Now, if you buy Sonic Forces nowadays, it's included. But when the game first came out? Haha, no. When Sonic Forces first came out, you had to pay for Super Sonic. That's criminal. That's all I'm saying about it. I just wanted to include it. Sonic Forces to me is a game that is just so middle of the road to the point where it hurts. There are things that I do like about it, but there are just plenty of things that I don't like about it. It's by no means a terrible game, and I think when people say that this is the worst Sonic game, in my opinion, I think those people are blowing it completely out of proportion. I didn't want this video to come across as me trying to diminish people's love for this game, because I know this game does have its fans. Typically, a lot of younger Sonic fans will gravitate more towards this game because it's really what they know, the same way that people like me gravitate towards games like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, Sonic Unleashed, etc, etc. It's just a generational thing, I guess. There is fun to be had here, and again, please don't take this as me trying to diminish your love for this game, because if you genuinely love Forces, then power to you, because I do think there is fun to be had here. But for me, it's just not my cup of tea, and that's all it's about. We can coexist, and we can disagree and agree on certain things, and we can still be fans of this wonderful, wonderful franchise. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?